Welcome to Start With Occupancy, the podcast for senior living owners, operators, and sales professionals. Hi, I'm Tiffany, marketing strategist and former corporate baddie who got tired of producing results for Wall Street and wanted to make a change on Main Street. I provide quick tips, idea nuggets, and case studies to help you with proven sales, marketing, and business development strategies along with leadership concepts, so that you can inspire change, impact lives, and improve outcomes for the aging, their families, and your teams. I'm committed to equipping you with the tools, the knowledge, and resources that you need to excel in your business. With over 12 years of experience working inside senior living companies, large and small, I've developed a deep passion for advocating for the aging adult and those who care for them, all while driving business growth. So whether you're already in the senior care industry or maybe you would like to be, if your mission is to serve them, my mission is to serve you. Join me as we unravel the strategies and tactics that drive success in your business while making a difference in someone's life. The goal is to touch, guide, and impact the lives of 10 families per month. Are you with me? It's time to be inspired, gain practical tips, and own your future.
Well, hello. I am so glad to be here with you. It has been a moment, and yes, I do realize that. But what I am most excited about is getting back on track. And, we've had a lot of things go on in the last 6 months with our nation. There's just so much going on. I really wanted to go into finishing the 21-day everything sales in terms of walking you through the sales process and what does that look like and how to do it effectively. If you remember, we did days 1 through 5 on the podcast of the 21 days, all things sales and creating that move-in experience. And so today we're going to focus on day 6, and then I'm going to keep putting it together, even if it's late, but I'm going to make sure I finish this up for you. And then I have so much more to say. When I tell you content is not an issue with me, it's getting it out to you in the format that I'm happy with. It's mostly my issues. But if you love to hear it, I love to give it. And I do it one-on-one with so many people day in and day out. And it can be family members, it can be other owners, it could be people in ancillary services in the senior care industry, whether it's home health or home care or Medicaid specialist or all these different client bases that I have. Your growth and success in this business, or for family members finding a successful solution for their loved ones' aging care needs, is of most important to me. That is my thing. That is what I love to do. And if I could do it for free, I would. And I do a lot. So the way I am doing this for non-free is I have the marketing bootcamp that is coming up. So if you're interested in that, there'll be a link in the show notes for you to sign up for the 10-week marketing bootcamp so that you can learn all things marketing. And it's basically 3 of my main courses that I'm doing as a live boot camp for you. So if you are interested in marketing your senior care or assisted living, independent living, memory care community, this boot camp is for you, especially if you're the beginner. With that being said, I want to thank you for joining the Start With Occupancy podcast. I am, if you don't already know, I am Tiffany Hill Allen, and this is, again, day 6 of the 21-day Everything Senior Living Marketing Series. So when it comes to marketing and tips and strategies, we are here for you in helping you to become a success. A success in our business is impacting lives every single day and having a fully occupied, thriving, and profitable business. So stay tuned for the whole series because we're going to walk through everything from the beginning to the end of the sales process. It is going to be very much high level. It's not going to be the day-to-day nuts and bolts, even though you will be able to take some actionable steps that I'm going to give you through this process. Okay? You will learn tips along the way and you'll be able to roll with it. What I'm most excited about is hearing the stories and feedback from you on the things and the experiences and what you have learned in the series and what you have implemented. So what I'm going to ask you is to leave a review for the series on the things that you have learned or what was impactful, because every time you leave a review is very helpful for the Apple algorithm to get this out to people who's really looking for this information, as well as for YouTube. So definitely, please leave a review. I would so appreciate that. So are you ready to get started with all of that? I hope so. Today, we are talking about setting the tone for success and how you can prepare your staff for your new residents. So last episode, we talked about how you want the move-in process to go without a hitch as much as possible. There will be some hiccups sometimes because of the complexities and the moving parts that's involved in moving a resident in. But your move-in process and how smooth it goes in the beginning is how it can impact your retention in the end. Your brand reputation, as well as your ability to get new referrals. When somebody has an easy process of moving in and they feel happy, satisfied, they're like, wow, this was a great experience, you have a better opportunity to get more referrals, to increase your reputation in terms of a quality brand, as well as keep that resident for a longer period of time. And it can affect the goodwill you establish with families and your residents. Are they not the whole reason why we exist? They absolutely are. You are committed to taking care of your residents, the aging adults, and to support family caregivers, right? That's the reason we're all in this. And it is most important that we do all the things that's necessary to make this as smooth as possible for them. There's nothing quite like a hurting family and a family who's in crisis. And I get it from people who have been in the industry and now looking for their own personal loved ones. And they say, as much as I've worked in this, it's so hard when emotions are involved. And that is so very true. So we have to always remember the emotional side of this whole process, because that will help us to become more successful. What we have to do in preparation for this is to ensure that our staff members are well trained, that they are prepared, and they are equipped to help with this whole transition period. A lot of times what we have seen, and this is my personal experience, is what we call in the industry as service failures. These are when things don't go as smooth as possible. Most often, these service failures happen inside of the move-in process. We call it service failures because when things don't happen, we're not providing the appropriate level of customer service. And when that happens, we have failed the family caregiver, we have failed the resident, and depending on the situation, we have even failed our team. What we want to make sure of is that we are preparing our team and equipping them so that there is less confusion, less chaos, less hard feelings, and less doubts. We want families to move in with confidence that they have made the right choice by choosing our community. That's choosing your community. We want families to be able to tell their neighbors, their colleagues, their church congregants, hey, I had this wonderful experience, because that word of mouth is another form of marketing. When we do not prepare our teams, we are adding and possibly reinforcing the confusion that families have. How are we doing this? By contributing to the unmet expectations from the family and from the residents. We are also impacting our first impressions from the get-go, setting the tone for the future communication that we're going to have with that family and their experiences with us. If there is a service failure, we have to rebuild that trust. And I will tell you, it is typically never the same. Because when the family first comes in to see you, they're already hesitant, they're already stressed, they're already having these mixed emotions and feelings about what is happening. There is guilt, there's so many things that's going on. And so when you work to build up that trust, and then that trust is broken, just like in any other relationship, there's forgiveness, but there's always in the back of their mind a memory. And so we want to make sure that we smooth over any of these service failures and that we prepare our teams so that there will not be any service failures at the time of move-in. The one thing you don't want to do is break that trust from the family at the very beginning of the whole process. A well-prepared team will create a warm, supportive, cohesive onboarding experience for that resident as well as for the family. Remember, there are two customers that you're serving. You have the resident who you will be caring for, but you also have the family who love and support that resident that is moving into your community. Not every senior has family, but usually they have someone that is advocating for them. And if they don't, I have always believed that it is our job to advocate for them, even if it's to their own physician or to the hospital or to the skilled nursing facility. We want to always do the right thing. And that means that we have to advocate for other people. I just believe in karma and doing good things and sowing seeds in the ground. And we want to be able to do that for residents who don't have an advocate on their side. I believe in seed time and harvest because when you do right, it always comes back. And even if a resident doesn't have an advocate, in my mind, there's always somebody watching. I happen to believe in a higher power, so I always feel like that pressure. But I will tell you on the outside, there's also someone watching how you treat others. People are always observing how you do business, how you conduct business. And when you are the person who's helping a resident to move into your community, there's so many different moving parts that they're all watching how you are moving in residence. And there is talk. But one thing about this industry is that as big as it is, it's 100% small and people talk and people are watching. They're watching what you're doing. They're watching how you're acting and they're looking at your integrity. And so it is up to you to instill that same mindset with your staff that even though I may not be present, your manager may not be present, there's always someone watching you. As a coworker, as another resident. And believe me, residents tell on staff. They will tell you in a nice way when someone was not treated correctly. So let's talk about staff since we're on that subject. Your staff is the heartbeat of your community. It is not just you as an owner who can build culture. Unless you are a hands-on owner or a manager, which many of you are, but a lot of times you have to go and do other things. You have to live your life too. And so you have staff that's also helping you. And they are the heartbeat of that community. They are the ones who reinforces the culture that you want to instill in that community and that you want your residents to feel and families to feel when they come visit you. They're the ones who reinforces that. And their attitude and their actions have to align with your vision. And so it's important that you hire. I always say, hire for passion, train for skill. That's how I've led my life as a regional. And in my past in hiring people is hire for passion, train for skill. And in this industry, there's no other truth that I have found to be more impactful than to do that. You are setting the tone as the defibrillator, not the actual heartbeat. What I mean by that is that defibrillator jumpstarts a heart, and then a heart has to beat on its own, even without the defibrillator there, right? You are the defibrillator. You are to jumpstart and set the tone of what your expectations are, what your vision is, how you expect the residents to be treated, how you expect small things to be done. And they are the actual heartbeat. That is your staff. And as leaders, we want to make sure that we equip them with what they need to ensure that every resident feels like they are transitioning into their own new home, that they're going to be in a better situation than what they were leaving from. The whole reason for an aging adult to leave home and to move into where you are is that they're either tired of being isolated, that they no longer can manage their own activities of daily living, that they can no longer manage their household, that they can no longer sometimes manage their finances or even their health. They are leaving what would be considered home for them. And most people want to stay home. And understandably, let's not minimize that. Let's not minimize the importance of home in people's hearts. However, sometimes staying at home is not the best thing for their mental health, their emotional health, their physical health for sure, or sometimes even their financial health, because sometimes people are in a financial situation, emotional situation where they're being taken advantage of, or they don't have the cognitive abilities to manage those finances, and they are easily susceptible to elder abuse and elder financial abuse. Because let's face it, sometimes people move in because they are at greater risk for those type of abuses than they would be at staying at home. And so the community is a protective barrier and measure for that particular individual due to sometimes their cognitive challenges that they may have, or just their trust. They're trusting. They're just too trusting. So it's up to you to ensure that your staff is prepared to make that entire experience a better situation for them. What do we need to do? Number one, families are looking to you. They're looking to your staff to confirm that their decision that they have made about choosing your community was the right one. And the way you do that is by backing up what you said at the beginning of your journey, of their journey rather, the promises that you've made of what your community could fulfill for them. The picture that you painted of who you are needs to show through the moving process. And that transition from home, skilled nursing, hospital, wherever they're coming from, and into your community, they need to see those promises being fulfilled. You want them to feel good about their decision that they made and not walk in doubt. Every time there's a service failure, something that didn't go through as stated before, you're casting doubt. And this could be a simple statement as, we have friendly staff here. Okay, when they moved in, is your staff being friendly? Do they even know the resident's name before they come? Like, these are all the things. One of the other things is we make your loved one feel like family and that this is home. Well, how do you do that? A lot of times I see senior living websites or I see the collateral that they have and the brochures, and they're making these broad sweeping statements. But then when I say, how do you do that? Well, what are you doing differently to make that happen? And a lot of times people are stunned. They're like, well, we say hello. Oh, okay. So saying a basic hello is making them feel like they're home. Like, what are you doing to make somebody feel like family or to make this feel like home? Oh, they have to come in a chandelier dining room and they come only in at 9 o'clock, noon, and 4. And that feels like home to them? How? And I'm being very facetious because we know people have to eat and we have to operate in operational efficiency. But how do we do that and make them feel like home if that is our broad sweeping statement? Now, if you're saying it's resort style living and you come into the dining room and have restaurant dining, then that is, in essence, yes, you're backing up what you're saying. Because in a resort, yes, you don't just come in any time. I mean, you can, but they have times for different things or whatever have you. It's scheduled. They have scheduled of this. But if you're saying this is where you can feel like home with your family, then that should be a different feeling and that should have different actions and processes that is attached to that. When they come in on move-in day and this, just like I was talking about before, being friendly and the staff is not friendly, that means that they weren't prepared, right? And so you want to make sure that you're preparing them with each step of the way, every little small step. And have you thought of all these small steps? What your staff does is either confirming the promises or planting the seed of doubts, right? And it is ongoing. This is why preparing your staff is so very important. It also helps build the gap between families and the community. And what do I mean by that? The more goodwill that is made, the more you're creating a culture of support, love, advocacy, making people feel warm and welcome, and it solidifies the decision and the statement, I want to stay here. And this was a great idea. You are, in essence, shortening that gap between families and the communities. So my question to you is, do you have staff that makes a new resident or family feel good? And what does that staff member do? I had a beautiful staff member, and every time somebody would visit, she was like, you need to come move in here with me because I like to have fun. And she was like, loud, but a funny loud, but she was so funny and so cute. And so when people came in, she still gave that same energy. Hey, I was waiting for you. Remember when you came in and toured? And she would just talk to them and they would be like, yes. And it would make them smile because she recognized them from even when they came in and visited the community. Another one I think of, which I've talked about so many times before, is Maria. She would talk to the residents when they were coming in to visit or future residents. And when they moved in, she's, oh, you're so-and-so, I remember you. And I'm the person, I'm going to be the one taking care of you in terms of cleaning your apartment. She was a housekeeper. And I'm going to do this. And she would do that. If it was my activities director, if there was somebody who was not very active and wouldn't be in activities, her name was Lana, she would actually schedule time to sit with the resident and do one-on-one activities in their own apartment. And so that way they still got some form of engagement, even if they was more of an introvert or was not interested in the activities. So these are just some of the things that again, your promises, do they match the fulfillment? So when I say staff members, who am I talking about? I'm talking about your housekeeper. I'm talking about the staff caregiver, your med tech. I'm talking about the office professional, who's your business office person, who's your dining services person, who's the server in the dining room. If you have a small home, who is that caregiver who's on during the day? Who's going to be the caregiver that's on at night? I'm talking about anyone who touches the resident. How are they making that resident feel? And what are you doing to help them on board? And so how do we do that? We help them by creating that culture and that environment at the onset, right? So how are we going to do that? There's a way, and I call it the 4 P's of preparation. The first P is plan. When you plan a move-in, how do you do this in a community? In the big box, we used to call it stand-up meetings. And I say used to, we still do. But in a smaller community, I suggest you call it a huddle, because it is when you get together with your team, your staff, and it can be through a group chat, it could be through a Slack channel, it could be something that you have that is your internal communication, that you can get all the information out about a resident. And so when you plan a move-in, how do we do this? Typically, these meetings are held once a day in a big community. And a big community could be, I would say, 25 residents, considered pretty big, in that you should have some type of meeting on a daily basis. But if you have a smaller community, you might do it on a weekly basis. And it is where you're talking about a resident, you're talking about any changes, concerns, feedback, what is going well in the community, what processes might need improvement, what situations may need to be addressed, non-urgent, obviously, and what can you change? Because any urgent things, they should tell you right away, right? All this happens in stand-up, or I should say that, because a lot of times stand-up in the big boxes, it can go off the rails to something. But it's the core thing, is what is the plan for the day? Who do we need to check on? What family members are going to be contacted? All these different things is covered in stand-up. So you specifically want to have one before a resident move in, because then this particular meeting, you want to ensure the staff knows at a minimum the person's name, the date they're moving in, and the time that they're planning on being there with their family member. Please, please, please. We want to make sure that they understand the plan of care, go over it with them. What is the date the family and their loved one is coming actually into the community, and time frame or time window? What is the name of the family members? What is their relationship to the future resident? Those are the things that's going to help with the planning. The second P is one of my favorite, is to personalize it. I used to do something called Look Who's Moving In flyer. I would put out the top 5 things I learned in the discovery process about a person. I would put their apartment number or the room that they would be going in, their name, and the 5 things I knew about them from that whole discovery process when you first start learning about the family and the resident. The idea is to paint the picture of who this person is. Was she a career professional or a homemaker? How many children did they have? What did they do for a majority of their life, of their living? What was their hobbies? What's their favorite TV shows? What are they most proud of in their life? Anything that could be a talking point for my caregivers to that person, especially when they're doing something as intimate as giving them a shower, giving them a bath, giving them their meds, helping them get dressed for bed. You want them to have something to talk about that they could relate to that particular resident. And then you can also brainstorm on how to personalize that move-in experience with the staff. That is some of the key things, because you're one person, but when you have 5 people or 2 people or 3 people saying, okay, we have a new move-in, these are the things we know about her, how can we personalize this move-in to be that much more special. Oh, we found out that her favorite cake is cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory. Let's have her favorite cheesecake here. So on her first night and her first dinner eating here, she's getting a cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory. Or she loves homemade cookies from the little Pillsbury Doughboy thing. Let's do that for her. Like little things. Oh, he is a big Florida State avid fan. Let's get a little throw that says Florida State so that he can have that as his welcome gift. That is how you personalize a move-in experience and give them a warm welcome at moving in. Have your team give you suggestions so they feel like they're a part of the bigger picture, that they are a part of the whole team, and that their suggestion at some point in time, maybe not this particular move-in, maybe the next one, but whatever it is, that they can be a contributing factor into that success. And when it is a success, celebrate them. That is so key. That's something that we, and I say we, the industry, have a hard time doing or forget to do, is to celebrate your staff when they do something or have a good suggestion or a good idea that is implemented and there's success behind it. It also helps identify what your staff have in common, like I said earlier, with the resident. The third P is practice. Train your staff on your expectations. Can I say that again? Train your staff on your expectations of what their key interactions and touch points will look like. So if you have an expectation that every morning there's to say good morning to your resident because you think everybody knows that, don't assume that everybody knows that. You train your staff on the expectation. What is the one thing you know that people at Chick-fil-A is going to say after you do the hand exchange of money and they give you your food? What's the one phrase? If you ever go to Chick-fil-A, you know, my pleasure, right? They always say, it's my pleasure. You think that it's a coincidence that it happens every single time? No, it's trained on the expectations of what their key interaction would be with the customer. And you can do the same thing. Great companies, solid companies, companies known for their customer service do not leave anything up for chance or interpretation. They have guidelines and parameters that are clear, yet also give a person the autonomy to interject their own personality as well. So you don't want people to be robots, but you do want them to have clear guidelines. And if there's something that's important to you in their key touch point with residents, families, then you want to make sure that you train on those things. What companies do is they empower their employees and their people while giving them boundaries and expectations, and that bar will be set before them. The key is to practice what that looks like too. Don't just tell it and bark. Don't bark. Please don't bark. But make it inclusive, make it warm, give them their guidelines, but then empower them to be free and be who they are as well, and encourage that. It's a delicate balance, but it can be done, and it's done effectively with many companies. But that means also practicing role playing. What does that look like? You don't want to wait till you're on stage per se, and the play is happening before you understand that they have a clear understanding of what those expectations are. So this is called training, guys. You want to train your staff and practice with them, but also practice what you preach. You can't tell them to do one thing and then you're not doing that as well. I used to do a training called the Calvary team because they would always swoop in and help, and they would be the backup when the sales manager was not present. So they would be the ones who would do the visits with families and prospective residents when the salesperson was not there. And a part of that training was to help them to describe their role, their responsibilities, and most importantly, their why. Because when everybody can do a task. Everybody can give meds. Everybody can give a shower. You know what I'm saying? With proper training, of course. Everybody can change a bed sheet. But when you help that person who's doing that job be able to articulate their why, and they're doing that on a consistent basis with every visit or every family or when residents are there, it reinforces into something inside of them that makes them proud of what they're doing. Understanding their why. Why do you like your job? What part of your job do you like the most? And so I used to have this thing for the Calvary team So at the end of it, and these are non-sales people inside of a community because we all are a part of that process of taking care of residents. And so basically, when I would put together this questionnaire, it would basically go over the who, the what, what's most important, the how, the why, and the summary. So by the end of the day, they would have, based on my questionnaire and their answers, they could easily roll off their tongue what it is that they did, what is their role, how it will impact that future residents, why is their role is important to the success of that resident's stay, and what makes them want to do this type of job. And people loved it. The Calvary team felt more empowered because now they understood how to communicate their role, not only just to others, but even to their own selves. Because you'll hear people say, I'm just a caregiver. I'm just a server. I'm just a business office person. And I'm like, no, you're important. I'm just the concierge. No, you are the director of first impressions, ma'am. People don't get through this front desk without coming through you. No, you're the person who answers the phone at night. You're not just a caregiver. At night, when people are answering their phones, when families are asking questions, you're the one who has to interpret the nurse's notes or what happened throughout the day. Like, I help people to see the value of what they're doing and how it impacts that resident and the community at large and the care and how they are a crucial part of the care of a resident. One of the things that this little questionnaire did was it also was very effective in giving the staff confidence and connecting them with the future and existing residents on a continual basis. I have the whole framework. I'm more than happy to put it together for you guys in a worksheet or do a mini training on it and have that available as well. So if you're interested in something like that, let me know that you're interested in a mini training on that, and I'll put it together for you guys because I've done it dozens of times. And so it's a lot of fun. And maybe if I do it, you can just download it and then have that type of interaction with your team and give them the training. So make that a part of their onboarding process because training is important. The fourth P that we have is to provide. So if you remember the other three, it was to plan, personalize, practice. The last one is to provide. And what we do as leaders is we provide the materials, we provide the resources, we provide all the things that our staff needs to ensure that they're set up for success. We don't want to set people up for failure. And a lot of times, not intentionally, we are setting them up for failures. We do not give them the resources necessary to be successful in their role or their job. And I say we, because I'm talking about the broader industry. I'm not talking about me personally or you personally, but as an industry and as a people and humans, sometimes we don't think about that next person. And so we set people up for failure, most times unintentionally, but we do. And so what I have seen in the industry and working with people, not just in senior living, but in general, the corporate jobs, that people have a bad habit of pointing out other people's mistakes, shortcomings, their weaknesses, or what someone did wrong. Quick to do that. And some people have a bad habit of pointing out what someone did wrong without taking accountability for not teaching them how to do it right. And this is where I used to tell my team is, okay, if your people don't know how to do visits, don't know how to talk to a family, it's up to you to show them how. And as a leader, I just always felt like I needed to show my people how to do their job. We needed to brainstorm. If they're failing, then I need to look at myself and see where is my hand in their failure and how can I help them not to fail. I see this a lot in senior living, and it breaks my heart because I really see this because we have some people who are really young, bright, newcomers in the field, and they want to do a good job. But what I have found is that a lot of times people point out what they're not doing and they're not learning it quick enough. Sir, ma'am, just saying 30 days of onboarding is not enough in this industry to teach people how to do their job effectively. I just had to put that out there. I just want to make sure people understand that. But people want to point out oh, this is wrong, or oh, that is wrong, or why'd you do this, or this should have been done this way, or you should have done it that way. They have a lot of opinions, right? But they don't look inward and take accountability for their own failure to teach, or their own failure to train, their own failure to model what that behavior or task should look like. And that's what I would challenge my executive director team. My salesperson's not doing this. They're not pulling the reports, or they're not coming to the meetings that we have, our one-on-ones, with all of their stuff. And my question is, well, did you show them how to pull the reports? Did you go over the reports and help them to interpret it? Did you show them what a model room should look like? Did you go over with your housekeeper how you want that bed to be made? Did you go over with your med tech how they should deliver the meds with a smile and a joke of the day? I don't know, just whatever it is, right? We can't just assume people know everything, and we cannot point fingers without taking accountability of our inadequate leadership. I see if a team is failing, I'm asking the leader, where's your accountability of that? Was you not watching the house? And I've seen it with VPs, I've seen it with regionals, where they go into a community and they're like, oh my God, this has been going on, da 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 da. And my thing is, have you been checking the house? Have you been just listening to what one person's been saying and not doing an investigation, not being observant, not watching, not listening to the codes and innuendos that's going on underneath all of that? So you want somebody to have a good attitude and smile at the residents. That's what you want. But when you walk in, you're with a scowl and you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? Again, that's expectations and modeling behaviors and beliefs. We have to be very mindful how we show up as leaders, because that is what's going to trickle down on our staff, and how our staff will show up as caregivers for our residents. Blame without accountability is the foundation of bad leadership. It just is. And I don't know if anybody's ever said that, but it came to my mind this morning and I wrote it down. So placing blame without self-reflection or accountability is the foundation of bad leadership. When I'm looking at my staff, and I've done so in the past, or the teams that I've had, and they did not perform well, I'm looking at myself. I'm asking myself a lot of questions. What did I miss in training this person? And what did I miss in modeling something for this person to see? Whether it was role playing with them, whether it was going to the community more often, whether it was observing, spending more time with them, whether it was having one-on-ones with them. What did I miss as a leader that caused them to fail in this area of their job? And did I do everything possible to help them succeed? If I can do a checklist and I said, oh, I did this, I also did this, I did this, then I went to bed pretty much good, sleeping well, because I know I have done everything. But I do ask myself those questions. And if there's anything that was left open, I would go back and would sometimes apologize and say, hey, listen, let me sit down with you and show you how to do this. Or let me come and sit with you. Or let's go through, how are you doing your calendar? How are you spending your time? Or I see you're falling behind in your CRM. Let me take some of that from you. So that's what I always did. And did I do everything possible to help them succeed is another question. Like I said, did I give them checklists? Did I give them worksheets? Did I give them support material or scripts? The ultimate question for me was always, what did I do or what didn't I do? And as a leader, I think we should ask ourselves that on a continual basis. And if I could identify better opportunities or ideas to support them, I usually did. Then I would set up a one-on-one with that team member, and we would go over opportunities. We would do something, or I would go over something and I would say, hey, I put this together because I thought it would help you. Or, hey, I did this as I thought it would support you in this way. In my first role as regional sales leader, I would try to do something better every month in our district. The one thing I did was I pulled our team away from the chaos of the community, and we would have a training day. And I did this purposely because I felt like people needed to reset. Again, that mental health thing that we talked about at the beginning, to reset their mind so that they can come together and really take a sit down approach and analyze what was going on in the community the last month, look at their numbers, learn how to interpret what those numbers mean, and find out areas that they need to focus on for the new month. So we would go over them. We would really dig deep and be like, okay, there's stories behind the numbers. I'm not looking at these numbers and pointing fingers at you. I'm saying, if this is the number here, for instance, you had a lot of visits come to your community, but they didn't convert over to move-ins, or you had a lot of calls, but they didn't convert over to visits. So you had all this call volume. So what happened here? And so I'm looking and I'm asking them questions, and we're interpreting that data. And I would give them 3 different scenarios of why these things will happen. So as a whole district, we would review their performance as a district, not individually. I gave them their individual numbers so that they can interpret for themselves. Again, that's the empowerment portion. That's the accountability on their side. But as a district, I would say, okay, this is how we did as a team, because I always wanted to reinforce that with my team. However, I would give them their contribution to that so that they can look at it. I would reinforce what they did well as a team, but also what we could do better. And then I would provide the training that day, not just pointing the finger, but making the training fun. One of the fun things my people loved is the bull in the pen, where I would put 2 people together. One would say a form of an objection, and the other one would have to answer that objection. And we would all be around, and then they would pick out the next person. And it was just very interactive, very fun games with little prizes and candy throwing and stuff like that. But it made the learning experience memorable for everybody. And people always left the meetings with an aha and a takeaway. And we would go over what was the takeaway for the day. So that is just some of the things that I would do as a leader, not just point a finger, like I said, making it one-way conversation or using a bully stick. And some people manage this way. They manage with a bully stick by manipulating people, manipulating their emotions, and manipulating their passion for seniors, and making them feel like they're not doing enough. And I feel like that degrades that degrades who they are as a person, but also tears into their spirit. And I was never into doing that. I found that what I did was really effective for my team. And this is why we were able to increase our district occupancy by more than 40 units in less than 9 months. And we were, I think 5 of our district team members won the National Presidential Award, meaning that they had the top 10 of all people out of 1,200 move-ins. They were in the top 10 of their class for each one. So they had a class depending on the size of the community. But it was because I think we worked together as a team. It was because of the intense training that we had, the fun that we had. I would have people who would go to the hilt to help a family. And sometimes it resulted in a move-in. Sometimes it resulted in other things, but meaning that they didn't move in. But the things that they knew that they reached out to a family and solved or helped to solve a family's problem. And these are the reasons I do believe in training. I do believe in cultivating, coaching, and doing the things that matter to ensure the success of people. And you should too. You really should. And I've been able to help independent business owners and operators grow their occupancy and achieve 100% as well with a wait list. So again, the strategies I use, it's not rocket science or a secret. It's a process. And so I teach that process through the marketing bootcamp. I teach that process through the incubator program, because this is not a one-time hit, one-time wonder type of situation. So let's just go over some of the practical tips today that may help you. Make sure that you assign your staff roles to avoid any missteps. So if this person is supposed to be the person who helped with the welcome gift, let that person do that. If it's another person who's supposed to show them around the community and help them to get familiar that first night, let them do that. Please make sure you have somebody to do that, though. What's horrible is when somebody comes to a community and nobody shows them around and they don't know how to get to the dining, or they don't know what the rules are, the TV or the cable and all that other stuff. You want to make sure that they know. Assign someone also, number 2, to lead the transition for that resident from home to the community, aka onboarding, right? Remember, everybody will be actively involved, but giving ownership to some of the tasks that's involved is a great way of developing their skills and cultivating new leaders. I'm going to give you an example of a great team member I had who excelled at this. I have so many that I can think of, but this particular person sticks out in my mind. When a family moved in, we had a maintenance director who knew how to make towel animals, and like the ones on the cruise ships. And so he also knew how to make a flower out of the toilet paper roll. And so when somebody would move in, he would put a towel animal on their bed. And I remember visiting community for the first time in a model apartment, auditing apartments, and it had a towel animal. And I'm like, oh my God, you should do this for every move in. Just put in a towel animal so they could be like they're welcome. And how awesome is that to go on your first day and you see this great towel animal like on a cruise ship? What an amazing first impression, right? Those are the little things that you can do and give that person that ownership. And he was very prideful in his ability to do that and put a smile on residents' faces. Another example of how I would create a culture of care was to give immediate feedback to the staff about the comments from visiting families to the caregivers, right? We would discuss what was noticed by families during their visit or move-in process, and that always made that caregiver or that staff member feel like what they did matter and that they were seen. Just by doing this, it built up their confidence. It encouraged them to show up even more for future visits or for other move-ins. More importantly, by giving staff that feedback loop, the positive reinforcement illustrated how integral part of the community they really are and to the success of the community. By sharing that client's experience, especially if they were named as a part of that client's experience, I always made sure that particular caregivers could feel good about what they did, what they said, their actions, that it was something that was noticed by families, and that their work that they were doing was good and noticed. Like I said, a lot of CNAs don't feel seen, or resident assistants or caregivers, professional caregivers in our communities. So it was my job, I felt, in my sales role, but even as a regional, to help them to feel seen. And it also made them more interactive with families. Another great practice is highlighting your staff with the introduction of their roles and the care of the future resident and reinforcing that. Another great practice is highlighting your staff with introductions at the onboarding process. I had a friend that happened with, and the day that he signed his agreement, the executive director told him that it would be 90 minutes to 2 hours. And he was like, oh my God, for what? And he was surprised when he got there what it actually it entailed. First, when he got there to sign the paperwork for his mom, the concierge welcomed him by name, made mention of him by name, that she was looking forward to meeting his mom. She said it was the concierge, which she addressed his mom by her name. And he was, what? The concierge knows my mom? And he was offered water or anything else that he wanted to eat, like little snacks or whatever. Then he was met by the executive director, who led him into the room where the signing was to take place. And then several staff members filled the room to say hello. And they were shaking his hands and welcoming him. And he was like, oh my God, what is happening around here? And then one by one, each staff member introduced themselves, stated their position and what their role would entail for his mom, who had dementia. And they all communicated what they already knew about her, which was really cool. For instance, we'll just call her Miss Smith. I understand Miss Smith is an early riser. Do you think the time for us to get her up that she would be more open to be 6 and 7, or do you think 7 and 8 would be best? So they asked some of these questions, but this was the person who introduced themselves and said, I'm going to be the morning person for your mom. Do you think 6 and 7 or 7 and 8 would be something that she would like? And he was blown away. My friend was blown away. And after that person finished their introduction and what they did, they would leave the room. And then the next person would say, hello, my name is, and ask the question about the mom, and then would say something about what they're doing. When I tell you he was impressed with every member of the team and how the team got together, he was just floored. And his mom stayed there for many years until she passed away. All the staff gave him reassurances that his mom would be in good hands, and they took pride in the ownership of the care that they gave him. And none of the staff was the salesperson. It was the actual staff, the actual people who was doing the actual work that welcomed him at the time of his signing with the executive director. And then after they all left, he was left then with the wellness director, who then went over her whole care plan and went over everything, had him sign off on what they were going to do. And she would ask questions also to make sure she had understood. And she pretty much went over the plan with him. So all the promises of the sales team that said that we are a community that cares, we will take care of your mom, it was evident through his onboarding program. And it was just amazing. And he was way impressed. You may be saying, this is great for a big box, but I'm small. Actually, what I'm describing is really hard to pull off for a big box because everybody's busy. Everybody has their own thing. There's so much going on, a lot of demands. But when you're in a smaller community, you can do this even better. And the question I'm asking you is, what processes will you put in place to assist families and new residents with the move-in process that will set the tone for success in the future? I have a few scripted examples of employee introductions, but here's a good one. Hi, I'm Tammy, the caregiver who's going to be working with your mom closely. I work on the hall that she's going to be living in. I work the late shift. Sometimes residents can experience more confusion at night and may have trouble sleeping. I keep residents engaged by doing an activity like folding clothes, discussing trivia, or just walking with them. I understand your mom sometimes have trouble sleeping. If you have any suggestions about activities that she likes, feel free to let me know, and I will incorporate them if possible. I'm excited to support you and to meet your mom, Miss Tammy. Let's call her Miss Tammy. That is what an introduction looked like. How did that sound to you? This executive director or administrator of this community set the tone and the expectation and a precedent that this is what a company of care should look like. And the community remained full with a cult-like loyalty and following with family members and staff members. I would also like to add that even after his mom was gone, do you know that they followed up with him? Isn't that amazing? So I hope all of this helps to give you a picture of what creating a culture of care can look like, and that you will be able to implement your own processes. Hey, can you just do me a favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are listening there or wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple being one of the main ones. If you can just put a review and like it, that would be great. That helps us with the algorithm. I'm also focusing on growing the podcast and would love for you to rate the podcast. DM me with the rating, your community name, and the city and state that you're in, and I will give you and your community a shout out on future episodes. So please let me know how you like the podcast. I'm focusing on growing it more and more, and I'm looking to serving you more. So until next time, remember to inspire change, impact lives, and improve outcomes. Hope you have a wonderful day.